Hey boys and girls, Ken Smith Fishing. This is a late Monday night TV show. The Rangers just won and to go ahead 2-1 in the series against Arizona. The game's just over. Chapman is going to be the death of me. I cannot, oh my God, that's so hard to watch. I just texted him with my buddies. I said, I take no joy in that victory for some reason. That is the perfect shirt for what's going on right now. So, I've not got a chance to fish a lot recently, but I don't get a chance. I'm really busy at work. For those of you who don't know, I'm a 35-year insurance guy. I work mostly in the life insurance business. We do some commercial property and casualty insurance. If any of you have need for, specifically in my space, life insurance, look at a policy that you're interested in buying, look at an old policy, look at converting a term policy. I do all of that stuff. I'm licensed pretty much everywhere in the country, and glad to help you out if you want me to help you out with that. That's my day job here in Richardson, Texas, which is a Dallas suburb. Zavala, the world headquarters, is down that way about 200 miles. A lot of guys are confused by that, by the way. So the cat's still available. The Bass Cat Lynx is still for sale. I got several guys interested in it. One guy's trying to sell a house. One guy's trying to figure out how to get it transported across the country. But both still up for sale for right now. So if you're interested in it, please let me know. I'll post a copy of that video right there. You can go check it out. But so I was going to go fishing this past weekend. Originally, we were going to go to Rayburn, and that weather looked really ugly. So I stayed here, and I thought, well, I'm going to get up and go to Texoma Saturday. Well, it was pouring down rain, and I am long since the period where I will go fish in the rain just to go fishing. And then, of course, everybody around here knows wind blew 100 miles an hour Sunday. But what I did get to do is I get to get caught up on some videos of some stuff some buddies send me. So I don't get to watch a lot of videos unless one of you guys, which is quite frankly how this usually happens, or one of my good friends says, man, you got to watch this video. Now, one of them I'm really interested in seeing is I know I have not seen it yet. I know Milliken had an issue with another Texas angler at that last Elite Series. It sounds like he got hole jumped. I've not seen it, don't know who all the parties are involved in it, but from what I heard, it's pretty bad, and the guy gets called out on camera pretty bad. But I'll check that out. But a couple that I have watched recently, and I get a lot of comments, specifically back on the Next Big Thing video, of a lot of guys who are hating on LiveScope, and I kind of get that, right? Anymore through, well, at least without high water where there's a really solid flipping bite or a really good grass bite, it's really hard to be competitive on my home pond, which is Sam Rayburn or Toledo Bend or most Texas lakes, with scopers. And we're seeing it across the professional circuits as well. And a couple of tracks I want to talk about specifically around that. Number one is everybody says it's no fun to watch. And I will admit, I really have struggled to make it through more than about 20 minutes of any of the smallmouth tournaments. I'm sorry, but a guy sticking a fish in open water and fighting him on a spinning rod for 2 or 3 or 4 minutes is boring to me. And granted, I'm old school, right? I still enjoy the old, matter of fact, there was a Major League Fishing tournament recently on, I believe, Caney Creek in Louisiana. That was a shallow water slugfish. I watched every minute of that tournament. The Florida events, I still love watching those tournaments. There's just something about that open water stuff that's not exciting to me. Now, and I've also heard some guys saying a couple of things. Either they should outlaw forward imaging, or they should, and there's a podcast about this recently with Josh Jones where they talk about maybe having some tournaments where it's allowed and some where it's not. Well, frankly, you can fix that by the location and the time of year to a large degree, and you don't have to outlaw them. They're just not going to be as effective as some other methods of fishing. But I don't think they will outlaw these tournaments. And frankly, if you think about it, especially if you watch live stuff, that stuff gets pretty boring when they're just not catching fish. There is technology out there where they can inlay on the screen what that angler's looking at. And if they would do that, that's fascinating to me. That's actually better to me than just a guy standing there fishing and not catching them and talking about them, where he can say, man, look how that fish reacted to that jerkbait. That's either a color issue or a cadence issue, and I'm going to try it this way, or I'm going to throw this bait in there. I'm going to fling a drop shot on him. And I think that is still what neither of the big circuits, the Major League Fishing or Bassmasters Elite, has figured out yet, is how to, either they can't figure the technology out live or record it. Just record it and delay it a little bit. But that would be so much better viewing to me than anything we've really ever experienced before. And don't get me wrong, you know, and I'm going to sound really old here, but Clun winning, cranking on at Pine Bluff back in the 80s was a spectacular event to watch. But I think there is the possibility with forward facing to make it a lot more exciting if they will let us see what the angler's seeing, and not just a shot of it, inlay it, put it in the screen where we can see a good solid view of it. As far as that goes, give us the big view of the screen and a little view of the angler up here. I think that could be really interesting. But the thing that really got me on this video, was an interview with Josh Jones where they were, well, not just that, but several guys saying there's no skill involved. Saying, number one, we can't compete with the young guys, and there is no skill involved in live scoping. And look, well, let's talk about the young guys first. So this is the 2024 Elite Series qualifiers. That's the 9 guys who qualified. So JT Tompkins, your point leader at 21 years old. Garrett's 27, McKinney's 18, McGee's, Robert Geese 24. Kenta, now they may have gone down to 10 here because I think Kenta was already in them, but I just picked the top 9 guys that would have qualified. Is the old guy in the group at 41, 21, 23, 25, 34. So your average age qualifier on the elites is 24-year-old. Now, that is the young guys, and that's the way that's designed to be done now, right? The young guys are trying to come up and they're trying to qualify to go fish full-time and be an elite guy. And by the way, I know a lot of guys were really disappointed when they changed it to all 9 events. That's the way it should have been. You should not have been able to qualify for the elites in 3 events. Anybody can get lucky over 3 events. You can do 3 events on a shoestring. If you don't become an F1, you know, Cup race driver by going and running 3 races. You don't make the PGA Tour by winning a Corn Ferry event. You make the PGA Tour by fishing and playing a year on the Corn Ferry Tour, or coming up as one of the few qualifiers from college, or going to Q school and being one of the best there and qualifying. You just can't let guys become pros because they want to pay an entry fee and claim that they're pros. This is the way to do it. Now, it's still going to be difficult, right? Because you could have one breakdown day in those 9 events, and you're probably not going to make it. It's that competitive. The points are that tight. But it is the more fair way, in my opinion, to pick the 9 best, I'm going to say young anglers, but the 9 best anglers out there who want to go fish the Elite Tour. Now, the next group I was curious about was who's already on the Elites. And this is the top 10 guys as of today on the Bassmaster Elite Angler Year standings. And I apologize, I actually don't know if their season's over or not. Doesn't matter. You look at this group, you got a 30-year-old Kyle Welcher. Brandon Cobbs, I guess he's the senior guy in this group at 44. Unless I did his age wrong. Man, that doesn't feel right. Hold on a second. Look at there. I wrote that down wrong. So he's only 34. Patrick Walters, 29. Cook, 29. Joey Cifuentes, 35. Jay, I'm not going to try his last name. Priscott? I don't know. Sorry, Jay. 24. Koyoff, 27. Brian Schmidt's the old guy at 42, 29, 36. So you take 10 years off Brandon's age, and that takes that average age down to 31 years old. So that both of those interested me that it is a young man's sport right now. So I was really curious to go look at the old guy division. I mean, there's no other way to say this, right? Almost all the senior guys from Bassmaster left when Major League Fishing was created, whether they glad they did that or not these days, who knows? I'm not going to get into that. But even over there, where you've got the Edwin Evers and, you know, the Mark Davises and all the guys that were so great for so many years, look at this group. These are the Angler of the Year standings for them through today. 31, 34, 38, 31, 31, 34, 32, 44, 46, 42. I don't think I averaged the age there. Maybe I did. The average age there is 36 years old. But as I thought about this, that's kind of how all sports are, right? I mean, we are our best, and you know, certainly people outside our sport would argue maybe we're not really a sport because you're standing on a boat making a cast and looking at a screen. But look at the PGA Tour. The top 10 guys on the PGA Tour this year, the average age was only 31 years old, with the youngest guy out there being, well, the two best. I misspelled Victor Hovland's name badly. Sorry about that, Victor. I don't think Victor watches my videos, so I don't think Victor Hovland will be upset with that. But if he does, welcome to the channel, and I'm sorry, Victor. But the best two players in the world right now, I think, are probably Hovland and Scheffler, and Rahm's right there too, and none of them are even 30 years old yet. And I even took it a step further, and I looked at who was starting tonight for the Texas. Well, actually, I thought this was really interesting. I had read this years ago, and I couldn't remember the number for sure. But you know that movie that came out this summer, Oppenheimer? The average age, and it's so funny to watch these movies or even the old footage of the actual guys in this, and they look so old because they've all got the skinny black ties and the hats on. The average age of the senior scientist on the Manhattan Project, was where they designed the atomic bomb, was only 25 years old. Einstein talked a little bit about this, about your most creative when you're very, very young. I actually just watched a video about Industrial Light and Sound, who were the guys who created the original visual effects for the Star Wars movies, when nobody had ever done visual effects like that. And all those guys were in their early and mid 20s. A lot of them were actually still in college when they were doing that and creating that company. And even looking tonight at the Rangers, right? You got, and again, I've got another typo in here. Sorry, guys. You got 33, 29, 30, 21, 32, 28, 28, 25, 25. Including Scherzer, the starting pitcher tonight, who got hurt. The average age is only 29 years old. Sorry, that's another typo. I was tired and watching a baseball game when I was doing this PowerPoint. But my point here is, and I'm going to blame, I'm not going to blame, I believe, I've listened to several videos or several podcasts recently. I believe Matt Herron made a comment, and I'm going to misquote Matt, and I apologize for that. But Matt said something along the lines of, it's not right that a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old can come out and compete on the tour and beat me with 20 years. I don't think he said beat me, but beat guys who have 20 years of experience on the tour. And what I'm going to say is that's the reality. That's the reality of pretty much every sport. And yeah, we can blame it on forward-facing sonar, but I'm old enough to remember when this kid came out tournament fishing in the 80s, and he dominated everybody. And what they said was, yeah, but he only is able to do that because he turns the trolling motor on 80% and throws a crankbait. And they said, you know, that's the only reason Kevin Van Dam can do that. Well, Kevin Van Dam changed the way guys bass fish. Guys quit hole sitting. They realized that the way to win was to go out and find aggressive fish. And if you think about it, he completely changed the paradigm of how guys bass fished. The guys that are doing this now, I think one of my favorite examples is probably Dakota Ebert. I think, and I don't know a lot of these guys on these tours. I wouldn't know them if I saw them in a store, but I would know Dakota, and I would know the young man out of Arkansas whose dad was a pro. Oh my gosh, he fishes out of a blazer. That's so scary. Spencer Sheffield. I couldn't come up with Spencer's name to save my life. Those guys are incredibly good at LiveScope. And what's interesting is, if you watch, Dakota's a great example. Dakota's kind of good at everything. But what they have figured out is they have so changed the way bass fishing is done. I mean, there's a couple of guys around Rayburn who won tournaments through the winter and through the summer. Sorry, I had a battery down me. They won tournaments through the summer by 10 pounds. I mean, they were catching 36 and 39 pounds, and there'd be another 30-pound stringer, and then there'd be nobody below them. And they're doing that because if you go back to our old videos, I've got a series, I'll post a link right there, that talks about trophy bass fishing. And I talked about this a ton over the years. John Hope wrote a great book originally called The Lost Bass. It's later retitled Tracking Texas Trophies. But the reason it was originally titled Lost Bass was what got him set on the course of wanting to track bass was everybody kind of all over, but especially around a couple of the power plant lakes that he fished, caught all these giant bass within about a 60-day window either side of the spawn. And then he said those bass disappeared. And that's what's prompted him to write that first book. And what LiveScope has taught us, and what Todd Driscoll's tracking study, I'll try to, if I can still put another link in there, I'll put one to that right there, have shown us is these fish, to a large degree, become pelagic, in other words, roaming in open water, chasing bait, and or relate to stuff that we never fished before. You know, if you remember, Todd talked about some of those bass on Toledo Bend getting on a stump on a mud flat away from anything else. And unless you just happen to know where that stump is and would go over there and make a cast at it, you're never ever going to catch that fish on a point or on a drop or on a creek swing or everything we have always focused on. And one of the things Josh Jones made a comment about was one of the difficulties he believes older guys have is if you watch his fishing, he is on that trolling motor and he is constantly looking. I mean, that's all he does, right? You watch the guys, I mean, Dakota, I've watched him do it at Fork last year. His rod was across his shoulders and all he's doing is out there looking for those fish. He's not even making a cast unless he sees a fish he wants to catch, not a 2-pounder, a 5, 7, 9, 12-pound fish. And these young guys at Rayburn and Toledo are doing the same thing. They have figured out how to see and identify those big fish. And if you don't think there's a skill in that, you are absolutely cuckoo. The skill is the patience to do it, the belief in yourself to do it, right? It's the same thing as sight fishermen, right? Really good sight fishermen don't fish for 2-pounders. They will keep looking until they find a 4+ pound fish, or according to what lake they're on, a fish big enough that they wanted in their 5-fish stringer. That's really hard to do. Clay Clevenger and I won a Fish or Go Blind tournament on Lake Tyler. It's been a long time ago, but we had 27 or 28 pounds. I think we had a 2-pounder at 130, but we knew those fish were going to come up, and I think I said 230, 130. At 130, there they were. And they had done it a couple days in practice. We'd seen them, and we just stuck with it. And we stayed there, and when they came up, we caught them, and we whacked everybody. Those guys with that LiveScope have that same belief. So it's the belief in it. That's a skill in itself. It's the patience to do it, a skill. The real big skills to me is the ability to identify a fish and in pretty short order make a decision whether that is a bass or something else. And I've gotten better at that. Still not great at it. The ability to identify the size of the fish and then to identify whether that fish is catchable or not. Tell a great story. Moon Pie, when the big tournaments come to Rayburn, Moon Pie likes to run the camera boats. You make a couple $100 and get to go out and watch guys fish all day. Not a bad day. And he texted me last year on the tournament that Dakota won. And he said, Dakota's about to have a big bag. And I said, I don't remember, what do you mean he's about to have a big bag? It's about 9:30 in the morning. He said, well, he's got something in the low 20s and he's looking at 2 fish, he said, are both in the 10-pound class. And Pie watched him. They were spot locked. Pie watched him follow those fish, not cast at them. He would not cast at them until he had them where he thought he could catch them. Skill, right? He'd follow him around. He said a couple times they actually went under Pye's boat, and Dakota said, just stay there. And he followed those fish until one of them got in a position. He made the cast and caught that big, I think it was an 8.5 pounder. That is a skill. And why are the young guys better at it than us? Well, a couple things. Number one, it's what they grew up knowing, right? I am, and I've talked to a bunch of you guys about this. It is so hard for me to go out there and do that for an hour and a half and not catch a fish and keep doing it. I know where I got drag spots on Rayburn. I know I went over and catch 10. And it's just really hard to have the discipline to do that. And the other thing is, just like, go back to the PGA Tour guys. Why are those guys so good? Those guys are so good because they hit thousands of golf balls a week. There's a book about expertise from several years ago, and what I remember what the premise of the book was is you'll never be an expert at anything until you have 10,000 hours doing it. So an average work year is about 2,000 hours. So 5 average work years doing that. I suspect Josh Jones, and I think Josh Jones is a really good fisherman. I don't know Josh. I've never been around him, but his results certainly speak for themselves. I suspect Josh Jones has 10,000 hours looking at a LiveScope. I am positive Sheffield and eBear and all those guys on those lists all have 10,000 hours doing that. They have become experts at doing that. And on the tournaments, when you can't do that, they have the ability to go catch fish the other way. So is it a young man's sport right now? It is. Can an old dude compete with them? We can. But to do it, you got to have that skill set, and you got to be able to put the hours in, which for me, it's impossible, right? I got a full-time job. I got a YouTube channel. I got a wife and 2 little kids, and I want to coach Little League Baseball. So it's not going to happen for me. I'm fine with that. I enjoy the way I get to fish when I get to fish. But if you want to be at this level, if you want to compete with these guys, you better figure out how to do it, because they're going to beat you, and they're going to continue beating you in Bass Champs and Mr. Bass of Arkansas and every tournament across the country, because they're catching the fish that disappear that the rest of us can't catch other than around the spawn. So I didn't pick on anybody in that video, because I quoted Matt Herron. I think Matt Herron's a really, really good fisherman, but Matt, I think, would admit to you he's not a great LiveScoper, and if he wants to be competitive in today's tournament environment, unless they ban it, which I think would be a major mistake. Look, Jack Nicklaus could crush a golf ball 250 yards because he had a persimmon driver on a lot of ball. Equipment changes in every sport, right? Well, I guess baseball's one of the few, but I think the baseball's a little more juiced than it ever was before. But, you know, every sport changes, every technology gets better. Guys are bigger, faster, stronger because they understand nutrition, they understand how to work out, they're jumping higher, they're doing everything. Pretty much every Olympic sport has been broken. You got a guy that may run a marathon in under 2 hours real soon, which is just crazy. And they're able to do that because they've changed how they learn to run. They've changed how they train. They've changed all that stuff. They train at altitude. Same thing here. There's better technology. Guys are figuring it out. They figured out what baits those fish will react to. They figured out line size. I mean, they've done all that stuff. We got to get better if we're going to compete with them. I'm going to keep trying to get better, but I understand where I fit in the fishing world these days. And look, am I comfortable with it? I got no choice but to be comfortable with it. So I hope you enjoyed that. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice again. For those of you who have bought some of Sarah's Christmas packages before, we're going to do another video. She's got some pretty cool little packages pulled together for wives, daughters, girlfriends that you can go ahead and get that order. So we'll get that video up hopefully in the next few days. If you've never seen one of those, check it out. It's a pretty cool deal where she allows you to just kind of, I think she did a stocking stuffer this year, and then 12 days of Christmas. You can give your significant other a gift every day for the 12 days leading up to Christmas, which they like, by the way. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll get back on the water soon. And if you're interested in bass cap, give me a shout.